demotivation among the existing employees vis-a-vis talent hired on a higher elevated package when both are equally qualified for the same position, which happens normally in many companies and people lead to its attrition. So how to avoid and take care of such situations?
See, one of the clear reasons why this happens is when hiring happens as a knee-jerk reaction. When hiring happens as a knee-jerk reaction, when there's chaos, normally what happens is you go in and you get what talent is out there and you give an elevated package. There is disruption. Because of disruption, obviously it leads to some sort of demotivation, some sort of issues which arise out of, comparisons, all of that. But I think how organizations are looking at it is that there are some exceptions which have to be made, and there are some things which are well thought through in terms of what the organization does in terms of the balance between internal talent and bringing people from outside. As long as you have answers to some of the balances, like for example, when you get in new talent into the organization, where do I put this talent? In terms of communicating to the team, what is it that I need to do? How are you managing that particular process? It's not going to be an idle situation where you can have a band of salary today and say, this is your starting, this is your ending, anyone who comes in will fit into that. Those times have all gone. This happens because when talent is scarce, when you have to get a rare skill set, some of these things happen. But you have to balance the interests of the organization and the balance of internal stakeholders, and how do you manage that process is what is important. One of the things is communication. One of the things is, when managers have one-on-ones with their team members, when managers have, when CEOs have town hall discussions, all of these matter a big way in communicating enough about the organization, the way forward, what is going to happen. I think half of change management is all about communicating it right. 75% in any change management initiative is communication. So I think we have to balance it. Somewhere you'll not get everything right. There will be some, but if you balance it and it is fine, I think obviously that is going to happen. It's not going to say that you're going to have a completely, you take even an organization which has done Gallup, which has done Great Places to Work. As long as your detractors are not as much as your promoters, it's fine.
You are taking a bigger risk also, because known devil is better than the unknown one, and you have more authority here for 2 years, and you are bringing a new one. And then you are giving some elevated position, creating frustration. This happens in all the organizations, at all levels. And people leave, the attrition takes place. And this has become difficult. You are right. We have to employ people to bring new blood, new culture, new technology, new things. Then specialist part is there, that is also.
No, agreed. But I think, see, you will have known devils and unknown devils. It's not that for every position you're going to have known devils. You'll have to live with unknown devils also. That's a risk that the organization is taking. Let me put it in a different manner. Whatever you do, you have psychometric assessment, you have behavioral interviews which you conduct, in-depth probing, you look at assessments, you look at even getting references. After all that, many of the senior leadership which joins the organization fails. So do you really have a full...
And the D, such a good gathering of HR professions. You see, what question all fields of HR have been discussed about by the panelists. All are HR heads in the multinationals. We talk about future HR challenges and all. Everywhere our role as a HR, whether at the head of the HR, never looks for that we are going to be CEO. I am product of Shriram Group, 79 batch. You see the young generation today, what they are aspiring. All management graduates, marketing, operations or finance, they look for the CEO position. Why the HR always have the advisory role only? Their aim objective never sees about. If you have the statistics, you will find not even 1% in the global scenario. A HR professional is the CEO. Always looking for, I was recently nominated for HR Excellence Award by Business World at Bombay. All CEOs were there. I asked a simple question, how much time you devote with your HR head and how much time you devote with your production head, marketing head or finance head. Why HR should have a secondary role? I fully agree, Sandeep has touched the point, Vayapan and Jacob all, we need to know the job, we need to be institutional manager. I as a HR head for ANS, I know how radar functions, how they talk to the pilot, what is the threshold point, how we take the revenue from the overflying aircraft.
Just in the interest of time.
But the thing is, HR professional, why always the advisory role? Why you don't corporate think about, let us pick up this man for CEO? Jacob is working for Apollo. I know Preetha and Sangeeta, everybody, I interact with them. How in turn they will think about to make a CEO of a hospital a HR personnel?
The HR out of Accenture became the chairman of Accenture.
That's what I'm saying. You can count on figures. Any management student will tell you the names of HR professionals who are CEO. 3, 4, 5. My batchmates, they are CEOs, they are presidents in the private sector. Why HR? We don't teach the people, we don't motivate the young management graduates that this field is also taking to CEO position. Let us sell ourselves to the corporates. We say enough has been said, last 3 decades I am seeing. That we are nervous system, we are what and what, employee satisfaction.
So what's the question?
My question to all of you is that as HR head and all, why you are not giving vision to your people that you can be CEO tomorrow?
Well, I don't know if you know, in Accenture, just last week, the head of HR became the chairman of Accenture in the country. And I can give you, no, there are dozens of examples, dozens of HR becoming CEOs. And I know these questions were addressed in the previous panel discussion. So if we can skip this question, because it was just addressed about an hour back, and when Dr. Swaroop said it's about HR wanting to become and gaining business knowledge if they want to become CEO. So it was already addressed. One last question. Yes, ma'am. And then we finish. And there is a question over lunch.
Yeah, I'm Divya Kirti Gupta, Associate Professor from Indus Business Academy. And this is a generic question and not directed to any particular panelist, but anyone can answer. The idea is that presently when we are talking about the entire scenario and the landscape, we are talking from the angle of VUCA environment. Now the question is that this kind of environment itself has some payoffs, in a sense that certain kind of demonstrations or expressions that would come out. We talk about how we can shape out our manpower to suit into this kind of scenario. But as management seniors, we are looking at reducing these 4 components so that it becomes more stable market environment where people can focus on many other things other than being very unstable, complex, ambiguous, and volatile. So are we also talking in terms of changing the environment of the business scenario? Yeah.
Divine?
So, means it's a very old and overused phrase, but I think the only thing that we see constant is change. So while we try to bring stability, I think, and this is something which I don't know, means it's not from any book or anything, I think the circumstances will always be different. And we talk of VUCA today, we talk about uncertainty. Uncertainty has been around. What we are seeing is that the rate of change is so phenomenal that what has happened in the last 500 years or 1,000 years is probably happening in 5-10 years now in terms of disruption in technology. And that's just one part of it. I think what we can do in terms of stability is, one thing that brings stability, at least in mind to people, is transparency. If as organizations we are transparent about change, as Jacob mentioned, if we communicate it well, I think the angst, so why is change difficult? The change is difficult always because of angst. Whether you take shifting homes, whether you take children moving schools, whether you see your kids leaving home and going to college, everything is change. If you sleep in one room, you're asked to sleep in another room, a lot of people get disturbed, right? So change is important, is difficult because we gather angst. Our role as HR professionals is to reduce that angst. Communicate more, give more information, and I have seen it in some circumstances. I'm a strong believer. If you explain to people what it is, if there's solid, honest logic behind it, and the honest word is important, then people are more likely to accept a fallout. There have been companies and examples where they have actually, people have, as a workforce, taken a pay cut during and not long back, during the 2008-9 downturn, and said, we are willing to take a pay cut for the company to do well later. But I'm sure there the management would have really gone out and said, here is our balance sheet, this is our payroll cost, and you can't do it with 200,000 people or 50,000 people, but you'll have to do it with the representatives. But somehow, as HR, we have in that whole garb or excuse of confidentiality, we have somehow not been transparent. I believe that can help reduce. I don't have an answer to saying can we not make things change. So.
I always say, and if I can teach, the two C's can change more or solve most of the issues. Clarity and communication. If you're clear about what you want to do, expectations are clear, and you communicate with each other, most problems, whether between partners or between organizations or between countries, can be solved. All right, madam, over to you.
Suppose one last question, sir.
At the lunchtime.
Good afternoon to all of you. Myself, Ankit Jain, I'm heading the Corporate Connect department from an academic platform, Vidya Knowledge Path. Although majority of the questions and the anxieties which I was having have already been clear in the session, like for talent engagement and for talent retention, my question is to Mr. Dipayan. Sir, it's mentioned in the PPT like for requisite skills in the generation Y candidates are missing. If you can please add upon that, sir, something, because these are the normal questions which are being asked by my students from my end, that basically, sir, what on particular perspectives, on what aspects we should prepare so that we can be industry ready for the upcoming days. So if you can please add certain inputs on that particular part so that at least we can be aware about and can impart the same to our students, sir.
And I think some of my colleagues can add to that as well. More and more companies are today hiring for not necessarily the skill, but what we call as learning agility. The point is, if you have a person who has usually above average intellect and the person can think, you throw a business problem at that person, whether it's an HR problem or a supply chain problem, with some amount of basic intellect, you can solve it. So people are actually looking at people who can learn. I'll tell you the example in our organization. Digital is how old in the market? Digital, the whole thing around interactive, mobility, cloud is probably about 5 years at max, right? But this whole thing, when we looked at it from a workforce perspective, and we were actually building a big digital business, it's one of our highest rate of growth business in Accenture. You can't go out and look for talent because there's no available talent. You're building something new. You'll probably get a very small pool of people outside, and that is a hotbed of fighting for talent. You can't give 200% increases to get people in because that's the kind of demand for that talent. What you do is you reskill people. When you reskill people, essentially what you're saying is, how are you enabling people to reshape themselves? So are you hiring people with the mindset who say, I am willing to unlearn the old and learn the new? Those kind of people will be successful everywhere. So I think if you look at, and that's why I'm not going to skills as in technical or functional skills. I think the behavioral skills, one of the big things required is learning agility. The second, and this is something that I was thinking about, is the new skill is ability to collaborate. Competition is there, but you can't win the competition without collaborating. Even industries are collaborating with each other. You have Apples and Samsungs, and you have in our space, you'll have the McKinseys and the BCGs and Accenture. But at the end of the day, at certain level, you are collaborating, whether it's in building thought leadership, whether it's in building information, technology tools. So collaboration as a mindset is becoming important. One of the things we look for when we hire people is that, are you looking at your own individual success or are you looking at team success? Simple. Because more and more research is showing is that the way we go down the path of saying you should just serve your purpose, in a larger scheme of things, organizations don't benefit out of it. So I would say just those two things. Are you willing to collaborate? Are you willing to learn? If those two behavioral traits are there and you feel strongly that they are there, you can pretty much put any talent in the right place. Technical, you have close to 25,000 skills in the market which you can train people on, but there's no point getting to that.
And now I would like to request Ms.
Yeah. So I'll just add to what he said. Basically, apart from learning and collaborating, flexibility and adaptability. Today, in any large organization or in a dynamic world, your organization keeps getting restructured, your roles keep changing. So you got to be flexible and you got to adapt and adapt very quickly. So you got to respond very fast. So if you are ready for that and you have those learning and collaborating abilities in you, then these kind of things will be really looked into. So that's, I mean, apart from, critical skills, which are very role specific. So that's it.
Before wrapping up this session, ladies and gentlemen, please a big round of applause for the esteemed panelists. Now I would like to request Ms. Shalini Singh of Tech Mahindra to present memento to Mr. Ashish Arora, sir. Now I would request CS Puri, Life Patron, DMA, to present memento to Mr. Jacob. Now I would like to request Dr. Anup Kalra, CEO, Ayurved Limited, to present memento to Mr. Kaushik Chakrabarti. And I would like to request Dr. Divya Kirti Gupta, Associate Professor, IBA, to present memento to Mr. Debayan Chen Sharma. And at last, I would like to request Mr. Ashwin Devakaran of Fortis Healthcare to present memento to Mr. Sandeep Tyagi, sir. We would like to re-inform you about the top 3 case study presentations and award ceremony at 5 p.m. We request you all to kindly stay with us. With this, we have come to an end of the second session, and now I would like to request you to proceed for lunch at the dining area, and we'll be back with the third session at sharp 2 p.m. Thank you.
all to come back to your respective seats. We are about to start our program shortly. Jobs.com. And in this session, we have eminent panelists Mr. Rajiv Jairaman, Mr. Ashu Malhotra, Mr. Sandeep Chatterjee, and Mr. Tarun Sinha.
We invite you all to join the dais, please.
Mr. Rajiv Jairaman, founder CEO Nolscape. He is the founder CEO of Nolscape, a global top 20 gamification company focusing on talent transformation. A TEDx speaker, he has delivered keynote speeches at various national management conferences. He is a top-rated visiting faculty at SB Jain Center of Management, Singapore and Dubai. He has delivered guest lectures at INSEAD, IIM Bangalore, IIT Madras, IIFT Delhi, NMIMS and MICA. He trains senior leaders at leading companies on managing innovation, change and risk. He has been featured in Economic Times, Business Standard, CNBC Young Turks, ET Now, Digital Learning Magazine, Entrepreneur Magazine and YourStory.in.
Our next eminent speaker is Mr. Sandeep Chatterjee, Global Offering Development Lead Talent and Organization and Accenture. Mr. Sandeep has over 15 years of experience in HR and organization development as a management consultant and an HR practitioner. His industry experience spans across telecom, BFSI, IT, oil and gas, FMCG, power, government, pharma, and manufacturing, working in teams across multiple geographies. He has a master's degree in Human Resource and Organization Development from Delhi School of Economics and a BSc Honours degree from St. Stephen's College, University of Delhi. He is a senior certified professional from SHRM USA. We welcome you, sir. Next.
Our next guest is Mr. Ashu Malhotra, Senior Vice President HR in Jabong.com. He started his career as a management trainee in Dabur. He progressed to Honda CL Cars as the head of HR and IR from there. He contributed towards building the HR systems and putting the policies and procedures in place. He made a conscious decision to move on the telecom industry with Bharti Airtel as the head HR of the North Circle, followed to Alcatel-Lucent. He then moved as the CHRO for Tulip Telecom, India's largest data communications company. He currently heads the HR function at Jabong.com, India's fastest growing online fashion destination. We are one of India's most loved online fashion destinations. We welcome you, sir.
Our next speaker is Mr. Tarun Sinha, Regional Head, Times Job. Mr. Tarun has proven expertise in successfully building business dynamics around a business proposition and generating a steady revenue stream, creatively achieving business development, marketing and sales objective. He has more than 15 years of experience in business development and marketing in media, internet and banking and financial services. He has earlier experience in BFSI with the likes of HSBC, RBS and Citibank. A Delhi University graduate, he has completed PGDM from Symbiosis Institute. We welcome you, sir.
Now I request Mr. Rajiv Jairaman to come and address the audience, sir.
Good afternoon, everyone. So this is the most dreaded post-lunch session, and smartly enough, the organizers have picked a topic that might potentially keep us awake. So we're going to be talking about gamification, and I'm assuming that most of us play games here. Is that a fair assumption? Is there anyone here who doesn't play games? Be it outdoor, indoor, mobile, web. Anyone here? All the rest of us play games, show of hands? Okay, so there is life in this room, good. All right, so just a few statistics that I wanted to share with you. As a species, human species, we spend close to 3 billion hours a week playing games, all kinds of games, right? 3 billion hours. And about 90% of kids in the US are playing games on a daily basis on the mobile phone. And I think those numbers will soon become reality in many countries around the world. So now, games are an integral part of who we are. It's an integral part of our cultures. It's an integral part of how we learn about reality around us, about situations around us. So now I just want to take a few minutes to set the context, give you some definitions so that you understand what we are talking about, and then we'll go to the fun aspect of interacting with the experts here, and then we'll learn more about how they are applying this trend in their own organizations. So now, I run an organization called Knowlscape. We are a global top 20 gamification company, and the question that we ask at Knowlscape is this. When you look at pilots, when do pilots actually start flying planes? Is it after they finish reading a book on aerodynamics? Fortunately not, right? So they go through n number of hours of training in a simulation, a flight simulator. They get accustomed to different scenarios, poor light, storms, right? Different conditions, and then you learn how to deal with these situations. That's when a pilot becomes a pilot. When does a surgeon become a surgeon? Is it after they read a book on human anatomy and they say, hey, I'm ready to cut open a live patient? That doesn't happen, fortunately. The process is you work with a cadaver, a dead body, you learn in a safe learning environment, you make mistakes, you learn, and then finally you are allowed to do the real thing. Now the question is, why so much rigor? Why do these two roles have so much rigor in their process? Yeah, so it's a risky proposition. You're talking about life and death, right? So you can't leave it to chance. And that's why we have so much rigor. Now think about leaders and managers in organizations. When do these people become leaders and managers? It's unfortunately when a person reads up a book on marketing. Most of you are students here, I can see. You read a book on marketing and you say, I understand Porter's 5 forces and I'm ready for marketing. Somehow we don't associate leadership and management with high stakes consequences. And that's dangerous, right? So that's why, experiential learning is important, a safe learning environment is important, and gamification of that is useful because it draws you in, it engages you, and it allows you to learn in a far more immersive manner. So that's overall the topic of today's discussion. How can we make use of gamification for talent communities? Okay, so gamification is the use of game-like elements. Now, what are game-like elements? If you think about any of your favorite games, be it chess or football, or some of you, I'm sure, are Candy Crush fanatics, those annoying people who send requests on Facebook, right? So if you rip it apart and see, hey, what is it that makes people play these games? It may be competition, it may be different levels that